Happy Sunday, folks. It's time for another weekly update. Some went on this last week. A big theme of the week was community partners and collaboration. One of the main things that came up was I had the opportunity to go out towards Lakeside and look at some of the U.S. Forest Service land out there and the homeless camps, the folks squatting out there, in general, garbage being dumped. Appreciate Shirley B for setting up all the folks to go out and do that tour with. We had the mayor of Lakeside, the head of the planning commission, multiple citizens, number of deputies. We brought our codes enforcement, and all of us took a walk out through the U.S. Forest Service land, making contact with folks, talking to them, what they're doing out there, how long they've been out there. For context on how long some of these camps have existed, there was a fella we talked to that was down a cliff, so we didn't get down there, but he was down a cliff on the riverfront. And when he was asked how long he had been there, it was 7.5 years. So the individual has been living just off this cliff on the side of the creek there, out on the Forest Service land. He had 3 canoes stored up, a lot of structure, a lot of garbage. Yeah. So getting out there, seeing some of these things is useful. Because of my background, I've been in a lot of homeless camps, but this gave me the opportunity and the others the opportunity to go out there and brainstorm ideas. So one of the big ones we're going to be looking at, we were out there Friday morning, Friday afternoon, and by late Friday afternoon, codes had gotten a hold of me again. We went out there, looked at the scene. One of the big standout factors we think we can leverage to address it is the garbage right adjacent to waterways or spilling into waterways. So through that, we think we can work with DEQ or these other environmental regulations where U.S. Forest Service takes a long time to get out there. The impression I think folks have developed over time is they don't really want to. They're low on resources, is just like the county is. But we have a lot of functions. They are the U.S. Forest Service. That is a forest. So we're going to try something new. I don't think this has been done before out here. Maybe it has, and somebody can correct me. But the idea was brought up that Codes is going to write some citations about how these situations, the way their property is being kept, is not compliant with county codes, and we're going to issue those citations to the federal government. I encouraged we also do that with the state government because we have that issue on the Elliott. Now, will that bring up the fact that county land has these same problems that need addressed? Probably. But these are problems we have to go at head on, so we're all going to go head on at it together. We're going to remind the federal government, state government that, hey, you do own this land. It's causing these problems. It's not compliant with your own environmental codes. Do something. And then we'll continue on our way doing something about our problems as well. Let's see. That covers a lot of the garbage out there. Obviously, there's a lot that could be said about it. Some of it's going into areas that are tribal land, so we're going to be talking with tribes about what we're seeing happening on this land where their ancestors are buried as well, see if they can also give us some additional leverage to pressure the U.S. Forest Service to address the issue. And this will generate, we're doing this here out in Lakeside right now. When we see what comes out of it, we should end up with a template that we can reproduce in other parts of the county. So appreciate again Shirley setting this up because this gives us somewhere to start, and whatever gets produced from it we should be able to apply in other places to address the problem more broadly around the county. Another thing I was up to, met with one of the individuals that's on the Empire Neighborhood Watch, brainstorming ideas on how they can be supported to show presence. We don't have, well, it's in the city, so as the county, we don't allocate deputies to that necessarily. The city has officers. They only have so many officers. And these folks want to see how they can help be a part of the solution as well, which I know everyone appreciates when that goes on. Communities like Lakeside that haven't had police in a long time, I know have had robust watch systems at different points in time. I know just from being on the Coos Bay Council that Eastside in particular has a very robust neighborhood watch. These folks also want to do something, and I was talking with the individual about, well, maybe if we can find a way, might not be a county one, might be a different district, but how do we get a surplus police car into the hands of the neighborhood watch and they get the funding to brand it? Now you have a vehicle that looks official, is branded like it's, well, it will be officially the neighborhood watch vehicle if we pull this off. And then again, something that gets created, can it be replicated throughout the county? So there are lots of good conversations going on throughout that, and a peripheral discussion on that boundary between Empire and Cape Arago. Cape Arago being where the county land does pick up after you've left city limits. Also, individual, and I was at a meeting this week as well. The Empire Community Coalition held a presentation from the Port of Coos Bay on the PCIP, Pacific Coast Intermodal Port Project. Neighborhood out there has concerns, understandable concerns, around light, noise, the change to the view. And a couple of the board members for the port were able to be there, obviously representation from the PCIP project directly. It was worth knowing. The question was asked about the land over there. It is zoned industrial across the bay from Empire. And one of the port commissioners actually lives on the waterfront in Empire, so he will be looking at it himself. So I know he's paying attention to the situation. And then a question around how it would interfere with fishing operations came up. One of the port commissioners is a commercial fisherman. He anticipated no problems not being interfered with by the large vessels. And there were lots of questions and concerns that just don't have answers yet because the project isn't as far down the road as it will be when some of those questions have answers. They enter NEPA, I believe, in a couple months. NEPA being the process which, when it's done in July of 2028, I believe that's supposed to be the deadline. I think they'll file sometime coming up soon, and that would make around July of 28 the time frame for it to be completed. My understanding is that's around the time they'll know a lot more definitively what they're going to be able to do, what they're not going to be able to do, and that'll bring about answers to some of the questions. So some things were able to get answered, other things you can always contact the port. They're going to know a lot more than I am. I'm just kind of summarizing my takeaways. We've got one of the collaborations that came up, not one that's occurring quite yet, but there's a good interplay between the two things. Small Business Development Center, if folks aren't familiar with it, Derek Tunn runs it. That program helps people with small businesses. They are located in the Newmark building across the street from Walmart. So first thing on your right as you enter the college campus, as long as you don't go in the dorm side, you go in the proper side. But they help small businesses get their plan together, help them work through problems, solve problems, stay in business, expand their business. And that is complementary to some of what goes on in our planning side, I think, our community development side. These are folks that do community development. Can we partner these two departments? So that's a discussion that's going to be ongoing. Is probably not this coming week because it's budget week, but another conversation will be ongoing is can the SBDC, being a separate agency, support operations in community development, and how do we reduce cost by maximizing our outcomes through collaboration? Similar to that, I'll only touch on this briefly, but somebody asked me a question. Folks in the education field may have better answers to this than me. Commissioners, we don't do, I want to see how we can support education more. But the question that was asked to me was, why are there so many school districts? Their proposal being the one that comes up periodically. Why is there not one administrative body? And that is outside my wheelhouse, honestly. Not interacted with it much. I mean, I think there's definitely a value in each high school having its identity. I'm third generation North Bend. My daughter is going to be second generation Marshfield. That those identities create competition, and competition breeds, that chasing, always doing better. But I don't think districts are required in maintaining the identity, but that is a question for somebody else. So if folks want to weigh in on it, any history there, always happy to learn more about it. I'm looking for ways that as commissioners we can support educational outcomes and encourage youth to get involved in local government, or at least understand it better. I know when I was on city council, Marshfield, I think it was Key Club, would always come and present at our meetings, tell us what's going on with Key Club at the high school. And that was really good to see those young folks get involved. A little more challenging if they wanted to come to a commissioner meeting. We're in the middle of the day and we don't always have folks that are conducting themselves in a way that I'd like youth to be around. But how do we get them learning about the opportunities out there as well? Because some of the jobs in the county are, I don't want to say obscure, but they're not a lot of younger folks going into them, like surveying in particular. If you know anybody that likes the outdoors, surveying is a good field. I was able to go to the Prosperity Council listening session this week. What went on there, this was called by one of the members of that Prosperity Council group called by the governor to go through why, the framing it as capitalizing on Oregon's successes. I mean, realistically, if we look at the situation, something I brought up at the meeting is we've got to be really realistic about where we're at right now. We're not building off of some exceptional system. The system has a lot of problems in Oregon. We're doing a rebuild. Some of what came up, education, big issue. If you want to attract talent, having a poor education system statewide is a problem. Coos County has one of the higher dropout rates of the 36 counties, so that is itself an issue for our region. Again, another reason to look at education. How do we make that system better? How do we as government, or how do you as folks out in the community, how do all of us get together and support education in our youth? Housing market, obviously it's tight. We don't have enough houses. Even with all the houses being built right now, it's still going to be, it'll be a lot less constrained, but just Coos Bay by 2040 needed over 600 homes. And when you backtrack the numbers, it was already short, somewhere between 100 and 400, depending on how you ran the numbers. So we got 400 coming into Coos Bay. Awesome. A couple more. Awesome. You got 180 going into North Bend. Well, North Bend wasn't part of that over 600. That was only Coos Bay. I don't know what their numbers were. So we've got a lot coming, but housing in general is a challenge throughout the entire state and ourselves. Encouraged them to bring back to their work group that cities and counties are often a couple years ahead of the state. Housing production strategies we put in Coos Bay, some existed before I got on there. Ones we implemented while I was on there were 2 to 3 years ahead of the state catching up on those same policies. I hit a button. There we go. Encouraging the state to, filter some funds out and then step back, because them trying to run things from the top down just hasn't been working. And pointing out to them that out of all the folks on their work group on that council, there are 2 that are off the I-5 corridor, and there are 2 that are not even in Oregon. There's not a lot of representation off of the I-5 corridor, and that's going to create a problem. And building on that problem, they did not allocate any seats to the League of Oregon Cities, the Association of Counties, or any tribes. All major partners in any economic development that's going to take place. So I've got concerns about that council. They didn't include much outside of the I-5. They didn't include any of their major partners they're going to have as far as local governments. Tribes are a big part. That work group causes me problems, but I've shared that, and I think the fellow that called that work group is one out of, forget if it's Roseburg or Medford, but I think he received everything well, and he called the meeting because he was concerned there weren't rural voices or voices off of outside of that area. So that was good to see. Let's see, we've got spent some time going around convenience stores, checking in, learning about their businesses as it pertains to Kratom and nitrous. I've talked about, we've got a work group coming up. It was going to be Tuesday. It had to be bumped. It's going to be, I believe, April 15th now. Grab my phone and check that while I'm talking. But figuring out how it's going to affect their businesses. Interestingly, I got no pushback about whether we put fees on it, ban Kratom outright. Nobody said not to. Funny enough, one of the stores I went in, 1:30 on April 15th is the meeting around Kratom and nitrous. One of the stores I went in, young fellow behind the counter, I was talking to him about nitrous, and he told me we need to ban it. I look behind the counter and there's a tank that big. I point that out. He says, well, don't tell my boss, but ban it. So that was surprising. Obviously, we don't want to ban all nitrous because it does have a legitimate use, but we'll talk about how we control that aspect. Maybe something that was brought up to me, maybe we restrict it to sale in culinary stores. Or we only do something with the flavored nitrous because that's kind of overt. You know why that's being used. I've talked to people that own restaurants. They don't know of, they've not heard of anyone using flavored nitrous for making whipped cream, which is pretty much the use. So that conversation will come up then. 7.0 was the version of Kratom that I've been told is the most problematic. And then I was told about a new one, at least new to me. And if folks know anything about it, I got a lot of information from folks about Kratom the last time I brought this up, so that was appreciated. This one, Tyanapatine. I think that's how that's said, Tyanapatine. And apparently it can be bought over the counter as well. It sounds like it's more East Coast right now, but that'll be another one. I got a hold of our Congresswoman's office, our rep through them, Zach, and talked to him about a suggestion. So I've mentioned that the formula around timber receipts has changed. It was at 50-50. I had thought it was 25-75 favoring the feds. It was actually 50-50. Now it is back to 75-25 favoring counties, which was an agreement from the 1930s. It was changed to 50-50 around 1982 and just not corrected until now. So, similar funding stream, secure rural schools. Some counties were receiving that. Other counties chose receipts. Coos County chose receipts. It worked out well during that time frame. SRS counties are now being made whole from time frame going back when it was not running, I think to 2023-ish. I've put in the request that counties on receipts also be made whole. So we were receiving 50-50 until now, or it might be next year that we receive the new formula. I requested that we receive that extra 25%, the 75-25 ratio, back to 2023, so retroactive. And we'll see how that goes. If it works, it's a good chunk of money. It would help the county, help us do a little more, and catch up on things at an accelerated rate while we move into this new formula. It's going to be beneficial for us. that that brings me into what's coming up. What's coming up is pretty straightforward. Budget. I've got my entire week blacked out for the budget. This is budget committee, so this is us three commissioners, three citizens, and we go through the budget line by line, talk about what catches our eye, and how we want to patch the holes when we find them. So at the initial one, where we as the commission propose a budget, we had one that was set up with no cuts. There have been some changes, but we're not sure when those changes take effect. So we may be looking at cuts, we may not. We may look at how do we offset so that we don't have to make cuts. And that requires looking at the forecast. What do we know about the receipts we're going to receive next year with this increased formula, with the increased harvest rates? A lot of factors will go into the discussion. It is going to be streamed, just like we did the commissioners' portion of this, the full budget committee. We will stream that. I was asked about a recording last time. The last one wasn't recorded. I'll talk to staff on this one. Or I'm sorry, it wasn't video recorded. You can get the audio if you want it. One of the things we've got working on parallel to everything else right now, and it's IT, so you don't see it as much because it's not real exciting for the public, but for Americans with Disability Act ADA purposes, we are updating our website. It's going to be able to be searched when it's done. So we've got some bigger changes happening to the website right now. Down the road, as these things stabilize out, I am inclined to make incremental changes. I believe the staff are in a similar boat. Once we get this thing done, things are searchable, things are more accessible, not just from the ADA standpoint, but for the general public. I like to be able to search websites easier. Then I'm sure we'll move into a talk of how do we start uploading the videos as we're going instead of people having to request them. Or I know we upload our usual commissioner meetings. How do we just work that into the standard process? Changes going on. Always something moving. It's just not always something you see, but it'll usually affect something else that you're seeing. And last thing, it's just kind of a fun one for me. I think it's Wednesday of this week. I'm going to have to duck out of the meetings. Hopefully we'll have things somewhat settled out, or we'll go to recess because I've got a joint meeting between the U.S. Coast Guard and the Oregon Military Department around collaboration around housing development for service members in the community. So good to have both of them talking to each other. Neither of them are Navy, but nobody's perfect. And we'll look at how we try and build up some of that housing stock for themselves as well. National Guard has quite a bit of land out here. They're authorized for more land than they have. And if we can get a partnership between these two entities, get some housing production for themselves, that's just more and more pressure relieved off of our housing market for the general population. So all the fun things in life. I am going to cut it here, and everybody have a good week. We will see you later.